Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Chattin with CHAP. I'm your host, Ginger Wade, and we have a very special guest today. But before we meet her, I'm just going to remind y'all that convention is coming up in June. And today on the show, we're talking about military homeschooling. And you can find support there if you're a military family, if you're a bilingual family, if you're a grandparent homeschooling, if you're new to homeschooling high school. It is the place to be to get your support in the state of Pennsylvania. So June 12th through 14th, mark your calendars. conv.chaponline.com. You do not want to miss it. There is so much going on there. I'm not even going to get into it because it'll step all over the time Natalie has to share with us. So you want to go there and check it out. You do not want to miss it. But that being said, we have a special guest today. It is Natalie Mack, and I met her at the Leader Life conference down at HEAV. Y'all remember I shared about that earlier. And she is involved with military families. You are a military family yourself, right?
Yes,
Yes.
correct.
So I really haven't talked about this much on Chat with Chat, and I know it's a really great option. Homeschooling is a really great option for for military families, but I want you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself,
Okay.
and we'll just jump into the whole thing.
The whole thing,
The
right?
whole
Okay.
thing.
First, I want to say thank you so much, Jennifer, for inviting me. This is awesome, Ginger, to be here and to be able to share about military homeschooling, my life, my journey, our family's journey, the whole thing. And so I'm excited to do that. So thank you.
You're
So,
welcome.
gosh, where do I start? I guess I'll tell a little bit about myself. So, I am a retired Navy chaplain spouse. So that means that my husband, who was the active duty Navy chaplain, retired. He retired 3 years ago. He served 34 years, and I should say we serve because I really do believe military families serve as well. You know, active duty members can't really do their job so well if the family isn't involved and supportive. And so we serve as well. We've been homeschooling 23 plus years. We have 5 children. I say plus because if we had another one after this last one, it would be 24 in the fall. But out of the 5, we have 4 that we homeschooled to college. They are all now finished college, and 2 of them have grad degrees, and one is at Virginia Tech working on a master's in urban planning. And then we have our 5th child who is finishing this year and is graduating. And I'm not okay, Ginger. I'm not okay.
Oh,
I'm not okay. It's
um,
like, I know, God has blessed us and we've homeschooled well, and we are homeschooled and raised adults who love the Lord. I get it. It's just that, my mom heart, we have loved the bonding, the family time, the field trips, the everything, the learning together. So I'm not okay, but I will be. I will be. So,
yeah. I
you
tell you
know,
what, I have one graduating too. It's my third out of 6, and it hasn't really hit me. It hasn't really
I
hit
hear
me
you.
yet. And I think today we were reviewing the program,
Yeah.
the mom who's doing the program sent it. Hey guys, check this out. What do you think? And I'm looking through it and I'm like, okay. When I get down to doing some nitty-gritty work on it, I'm like, whew, yeah. So
Yes.
it maybe Saturday,
Yeah.
maybe at
Yeah.
the
Maybe
ceremony on
right. You're about
Saturday. I'll
right.
have it in there, right?
I hear you. So that's been our journey. We've been homeschooling completely within the military community. I've been in leadership of military homeschool support groups throughout probably most of the 23 years. I just recently stepped out of leadership of a really large military homeschool support group here in Northern Virginia. It's at Fort Belvoir, and I was leading the Fort Belvoir home educators. Excuse me. Let me take a sip. That would happen when you get on
Oh, sure.
project.
You go ahead and do that. No problem whatsoever.
So so we've been doing that for a long time, and the leadership has kind of come along with it. I've always been passionate about military families. My husband being a Navy chaplain, we've always supported, served, volunteered. Um, and I really feel like the families really always are the ones that need the most support. And when you add homeschooling to military life, it creates an additional challenge to some degree. And one of the main reasons I would say would be typically active duty members may go on deployments, right? Or they're not, their hours are really wonky a lot. And so when you add that homeschooling, moms don't really get a break, right? And because there's no guarantee of a break. And so on one hand, you have the continuity, which is a reason that a lot of families in the home in the military, choose to homeschool, is that continuity. We're moving every 2 or 3 years typically. So everything stays the same if you homeschool. Mom's typically the teacher, right? Your curriculum, pack it up and go, online classes, stay online, all the things. And so you have that, but then there's that challenge of, living through the military life itself and the anxieties of concerns and deployments and conflicts in other parts of the world and what that looks like for your family. And so it's been an interesting journey, and we've loved it. It has been phenomenal being able to travel a lot. We've lived overseas. The last assignment overseas was in southern Italy and Naples. And we made the best of being in Europe and traveled as much as we could afford to, because one income, you know how that is, and typically for most homeschool families. But we made a sacrifice, and it was amazing to be able to see some of these historical sites that you learn about in your history, and really be able to apply it. And it has caused our children to be world travelers, and now they keep a suitcase packed. And typically, as adults, I will get a message, I'm getting ready to board a plane. And I'm like, oh dear, where are you going? That mom, like, where are you going? I need the itinerary. What plane are you on? All the things, right? But they're very comfortable traveling around the world. So, and they're very comfortably um, confident as well, is what I should say. And I'm thankful that they are very confident about who they are. They love the fact that they were homeschooled, and they really have said, hey, I see the reason, I see the benefit. So, yeah.
Yeah, I can see. I mean, obviously, it's a great choice for military families to
Yes,
homeschool. And I know
yes,
there's other options, but
yes.
recently we had a Capitol Day, and one of the state senators came and he was a homeschooler, and they told a little bit about their experience. They also lived overseas and then took advantage of all the times being out there,
Mhm.
and the amazing opportunities you have for learning as a
Yes,
homeschool family when you're deployed or whatever. It
yes,
That is tremendous. Like, I hadn't even thought of that before, but that,
yes,
like, yeah, and like you said, they have this comfortableness with trap, you just jumping on a plane and going, and we're going to go
yeah,
over here, and we're going to go to this different culture, this, and that is
yes.
amazing. That
Yeah.
could lead to amazing opportunities too.
Yeah, yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Our youngest, when my husband was a Navy chaplain at a base called Little Creek, it's down in Virginia Beach, and it's actually the home of the Navy SEALs. So just kind of for reference. And somebody may say, well, what's the Navy SEAL? So sorry, I threw that out there thinking, okay. And I call them the special op forces for the Navy. And
Mhm.
so anyway, not to scroll too much into that. And so when my husband was the chaplain there on the base at Little Creek, one of the nonprofits that the chapel supported was Olive Branch, and they had a ministry in Ukraine, outside of Kiev. And so both our daughters, who are our oldest out of the five, were able to go with dad. And when they came back, our oldest daughter, who I had been saying, you need to learn Spanish because you got to get your 2 years in high school, right? And she was like, I don't want to learn Spanish. I speak Spanish. And I was like, this would be really easy. We could do this, together, right?
Oh,
And
sure.
yeah, she never really gravitated. But she comes back from Ukraine, and what does she say? I want to learn Russian. And so I thought, I did a TEDx, it's on YouTube. I think it's about 2 years ago. I did it. It has like over 34,000 views. And the only reason I'm saying that is because my goal for that was to inspire and encourage. And in that TEDx, I talk about how she came back and said, I want to learn Russian. And I was like, okay, we're homeschooling. We can get this done, right? We can choose these options. We aren't in a box. And that's one of the blessings of homeschooling, is like, if your children have passions and interests, you can go down that rabbit trail and help them develop that. And that's exactly what we were able to do. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a daughter that's interested in Russian too. That's so
Oh,
fun.
that's awesome.
Yeah, but
Yay.
yeah, right. So they designed their own little history. This is what I want to learn. I had one that did a deep study on Dutch,
Okay,
and
yes.
she learned the art of Dutch knife throwing.
Oh,
Apparently, it's a
wow. How
thing. So
cool. How
I was like,
cool. I love
she
it.
read a book on it. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, right? Yeah, and then they also love worship music. So she
Yeah.
they're just learning Russian through worship music. So the
Mm-hmm.
songs that they know, and then they
Mm-hmm.
listen it to Russian, and then it's just, I'm like, that is just the coolest, you
It's
know?
so cool.
It's
Homeschoolers do such cool things. They really do.
yeah.
I mean, somebody needs to create a book of like all the cool things homeschoolers do. I
I
think,
mean, it would be
yeah.
like it'd be like an encyclopedia, right? It would be a whole,
Yeah. Yes.
a whole bunch of a whole set. Okay,
Yeah.
so obviously homeschooling is a really great option for military families. Now,
Yeah.
I was thinking, like you were mentioning being part of a group,
Mm-hmm.
is and you move around a lot, to all the
Mm-hmm.
different bases. Now, do bases typically have a group that people can connect with, or like
Mm-hmm.
how does that
Mm-hmm.
work? Like, so
Yeah.
like
Mm-hmm.
obviously you move, that's how
Right.
one way that it's different, but like talk about that. Like how do people plug in or
Yeah, so it can be a little challenging, but most, I should say, many installations, which are bases, right, have some type of homeschool support group or co-op or park day or something, right? Not everyone, because it's all volunteer based, just like it is, outside of the military community. The challenge is because we don't stay put. Someone could lead a group and have all the
Mhm.
people coming and all the excitement and activity and flurry of busyness, and then they get orders and the group just kind of like falls, right? Unless someone steps up.
So,
Or unless someone moves in, which we call PCS, which means permanent change of station. They come in on orders and they say, oh, we'll revive the group or we will take it over. And so you have a lot of this flex going on. And so that makes it challenging. But in general, military families like to get together. They will get together on an installation. And some bases are so remote that that's the best option for community versus somewhere like where I am here in Northern Virginia. There's so many options, right? But in other places, like out in the Mojave Desert and the Army Post, Fort Irwin, you're 34 miles to the closest small town, right? An hour to a larger middle-sized town. So, community is really important, and we just find it, and we find a way to get connected. And so, yeah, it's very neat. And the group here at Belvoir that I led for 4 years, I was on the board for 8. We were able to get a lot of partnerships and programs established, partnering with someone called a school liaison officer. And in the military, we call it a SLO, at SLO. And that person's job is to pretty much help military families facilitate education. So whether they want to go to a DoD school if the base has one,
yeah.
a local public school, or homeschool. And a lot of what I've done over the past couple of years is working and training and educating these individuals on how can you serve this military family who's homeschooling, and how can you learn about homeschooling so that you can be of very efficient in your support.
Mhm. Mhm. So how does that work? Like, I just this question just totally
Yeah,
popped up in my
yeah.
head. Like,
Oh,
say you are living in Virginia.
yeah,
I'm guessing you follow the Virginia homeschool law, and then if you get
yeah.
deployed somewhere else or you move somewhere else, then you're following that. So you're like changing.
Yeah, I
So you
know. Can
have
you
to know the
imagine?
law.
Yeah, yeah, you have to know
Wow.
the law. Exactly. And so when you're in, well, there's something called a home of record. We call it an HOR. So military families are typical, they're used to answering and responding about, oh, this is our home of record. We follow that for taxes, maybe, or something. But for homeschool law, home of record has no effect. It has nothing to do with it. You do follow the law where you physically reside. And so that is a little challenging because you're right. You're somewhere 2 or 3 years. You finally figured out the law. You finally realize, oh, I should have sent in that notification already, right? That, in a state that requires it, like here in Virginia, and then you get orders to move. And so it is your responsibility to know and to find out the law. One of the hats that I wear is with Homeschool Legal Defense Association. And so that the legal piece is their
Mhm.
foundation. And so we have resources that I've created, that they've created. We've put together a nice landing page on our website. We have a Facebook group for military homeschoolers. And I stay really busy in that position as the outreach coordinator for the military. And so you can find the law. And then, of course, they can, like CHAP, right? They can find the law. They can
Mhm.
come to the state org. So I always make sure I encourage families to check both places and to become
Mhm.
active in both HSLDA and the state organization. Go to the convention like you were talking about. Get plugged in because you all work really hard. And one of the things military families, I don't think know, I can't speak for them, but I know it's often difficult for state orgs to really increase their numbers of military families who join. And what I try to tell these families is your right to continue homeschooling when you move to that next state is really being fought and maintained by the state org. And if the state organization wasn't there, you might PCS somewhere where you wouldn't be able to homeschool. And so you have to really think about they need your support because you're benefiting while you're there. Even if you're there just 2 years, that's 2 years of your homeschool journey that you're able to continue to freely, homeschool. And it helps them figure, oh wow, that's true. I hadn't thought about that. So I am on a mission to get that message out to increase. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think just about every state has a homeschool organization. I knew New Jersey just started one, so yeah.
I've heard. Yes, yeah.
And yeah, right. I think according to Jan and Roger Smith, there's only like three more left. So
Okay.
wherever you are, there is a homeschool organization you can connect
Right.
to.
Yes.
So here's a question, just because I'm curious.
Yeah.
Military families, like homeschooling military families, do they like would they prefer like to create a military group, or do they kind of go out and get connected with like the everybody, like the whole homeschool
Mm-hmm.
pool, like the
Mm-hmm.
co-ops and groups and stuff like that? What tends to
Mm-hmm.
be the habit there
It really depends on where they are
where
stationed.
you
Again,
are?
if it's a
Yeah.
remote location, the
Yeah.
only choice is something on the base. So usually those groups are pretty large and they thrive really well. Overseas groups thrive really well because you're in a foreign country and that's your connection to other American homeschoolers, right? But then in a place where there's a lot of options, it can be a little challenging for that base, that installation group to really grow. Here at Belvoir, we have a large one. It's been active for a long, long, long time, but there's so many options. So what I find that if you're in an area where there's a lot of options, what we call civilian options, like co-ops outside of the gate, then a lot of times families will still become part of the base group just to stay connected. And then they will also join something else, like a co-op or some other activity off base as well. So it can be challenging. A lot of the civilian groups struggle too with military homeschoolers joining because everything's so volunteer based. And then we get orders, like we might be leading something and doing a great job because we typically bring a lot of skills from all of the movement and experiences. But then you get orders and you have to go. And so then that leaves what a vacancy there, a void. And so it can be a little hard for the civilian groups to say, embrace military homeschoolers in leadership positions, but we bring so much to the table that, and we do a great job while we're there. So I say, love on us while we're there. We're serving our country, and
Yeah.
we have no control over when we get orders and have to go. So just
Yeah.
kind of love
Well,
on
yeah,
us.
exactly. I mean, your whole family's service is invaluable to all the rest of us,
Yes,
right? Like
yes,
what you are
yes,
doing as a family and the life that you guys are living
yes,
is valuable to everyone who's in the United States. I
yes.
I can totally get it because like your orders, I mean, it doesn't go by the school year, right? I mean, it comes
No. Yes,
it comes
yes,
whenever.
yes. It comes, and you
Yeah.
tend to be on a rotational basis. Like we tended to PCS around in October, which is off cycle. And I hated it because, of course, PCSing to a new place in October, co-ops are typically full, everything's full. But it was what it was, right? But most people PCS during what we call the normal PCS cycle, which is around in mid April, late April till around in the end of August. That's the cluster. And but we don't have any control over when we get the orders because something could change. It's always based on the needs of the military. So if you're Navy, the needs of the Navy. And sometimes they will say, we need you to move quicker. We need you to get to this duty station to fill this spot. Or, they'll send you on a deployment, which is where the family stay and the active duty member goes. So we don't go on deployments because we can't do anything there.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's really
Yeah.
interesting. Really
Yeah.
interesting. A lot of people ask a lot of questions because unless you have someone in the military that's a friend or a family member, you really don't know a lot about what happens and how our life is. And but we're part of society moving around. And I always think back when you said how, our service is, it's for all of us as Americans. If you ever pass by an Air Force base, typically you'll see a sign out front of the gate that says the sound of freedom. And I love that because what
Hmm.
does that mean? The Air Force planes are constantly practicing, and that sound can be annoying. But at the same time, it's the sound of freedom, right? And if the base wasn't there, if the Air Force wasn't there, it'd be really, really difficult. Many of the missions we wouldn't be able to do them. So, um, thanks for saying that and
Yeah, yeah,
recognizing
sure.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so here's a question. Like if there's groups that would, be more than happy to welcome in military families, like how do you, I guess if you live near a base, you would know that you live near a base. Like, but
Yeah.
how would you get connected? Like it's sometimes it might be hard to get
Yeah.
connected to military families, and how could you let them know that they could come in, or how do
Right.
like
Yeah.
how do
So
you let them know that you're there? I don't.
yeah, that can be a little challenging, right? Because you probably don't have access to come on base because you don't have an ID card. Um, so having said that, one of the ways is social media is really important for us in terms of Facebook, and I know people have different varying views about it, but it is one way we can easily find each other and get connected. And so a lot of times groups will post, their activities, their events on social media. Somebody sees it. You can also get connected to the school liaison. So on under my hat with HSLDA, I we created a directory on the military family page. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, it will have the school liaison officers. Those are the people that really you need to get the info to that, hey, I have a co-op, I have a program, I have a group. I love to welcome, military families that are homeschooling, and you can connect that. And they would love to share that information within the base. And so that's one of the two of the ways, social media and then contacting,
Yeah.
going to our page and you can actually find it. So
Yeah, that's wonderful. I just keep the word flexibility just keeps going through my head again and
yeah,
again and again. Like
yeah,
your life is just
yeah.
flexibility, just everything.
Flexibility, a lot of resilience, flexibility. Yeah, so many experiences. It's been a real blessing. I will tell you, out of those 34 years, um, the first 7 of the 34, we were active duty Army. My husband was an intel officer, and so we lived the Army life, and we were out at that Fort Irwin in the Mojave Desert. And then we moved to the Arizona desert south of Tucson to Fort Huachuca. Then we moved to Germany and blah, blah, blah. And then um, God called him to the ministry, and God confirmed the call through me because we were in Germany and life was great. And we had one child and we were free to travel a whole lot. And I think God has such a sense of humor. I think he confirmed the call through me because I probably would have been the one like, no, we're not leaving. And so my husband, made a decision to give up his he was a major at the time, give that up and come back to the US, come back stateside, go to seminary. And it was a walk of faith, like, no, I mean, like amazing walk of faith because everyone thought we were really crazy. But because God had confirmed it through me, I was like, no, we got to do this because I know He confirmed it. And I was able to let go of our life as I knew it to embrace a life of uncertainty, no income at the time, going to seminary. And God poured people into our lives to bless us and supported us. And we were able to stay with His parents for a while. I had another child. It's an amazing testimony of how God provided. And then we looked at each other one day. He had finished seminary, and we were like, civilian life is okay, but we have more kids and we don't see kids outside. And this was pre-homeschooling for us. And we decided, I think we want to go back in the military. And so, right when he decided to go back in and got an opportunity to go in as a Navy chaplain, which was an amazing opportunity, we had decided to homeschool. We had gotten orders to California. I wasn't too excited about what I was hearing about in the public schools there. Our children had been in a private Montessori school. I was a licensed mental health therapist. And so we had a lot of transition. And I just kind of felt God had been showing us homeschooling, and we were meeting homeschoolers. And I think He just kind of said, okay, I'm gonna tap you on the shoulder. It's your turn. And so right before 9/11, like about 2 weeks before 9/11, we decided to homeschool. And about 3 weeks after 9/11, we were flying to San Diego to meet him. He had already gone ahead. So we sold our house in Maryland. We said goodbye to family, everything our kids had ever known. And we got on a plane 3 weeks after 9/11 with security, police dogs, everything. I was 34 weeks pregnant. Don't ask, because yeah, that's another testimony. So God provided. We had a good friend who was a doctor. He wrote, what's it called? Standby. He got a standby, and he got a seat right behind me, and we had a bumpy flight, and he just kept tapping, you okay, you okay? Because he said, what you're not going to do is have the baby on the plane. And so we made it. But that's just a testimony of God's goodness, and how we were called to come back in and serve. And we had an incredible 21 years of Navy chaplaincy. And in between the Army and Navy were reserve time. And so we've lived a little bit of everything. And so we had Army life, and then we had reserve time, and then Navy allowed us to serve with the Marine Corps twice, both in Camp Pendleton on the West Coast and camp down by Camp Lejeune in North Carolina. And then the Navy, he's been on an aircraft carrier, the Truman, out of Norfolk. We didn't get a Coast Guard assignment, but yeah, so it's been phenomenal. Really, really, a lot of sacrifice. I'm not going to minimize that, right? A lot of uncertainty, a lot of change, but phenomenal, and how God just kind of brought it full circle and provided. So I didn't intend on sharing that, but I guess I was supposed to,
No,
because
hey, I
nobody
guess
else
you're
knows. It's not like it's
supposed
a secret.
to.
It's just that wasn't that wasn't my thought when we talked about the podcast, but here it is. So
But here it is. That's good. I love I love the rabbit trails. I'm just hearing just, you know, just the community and the need for support. Like I said before, the flexibility and the just I don't know. God leads you through these for some, like he's doing something. Like he's doing
mhm,
something in your kids and in you. And it might look like, wow, I can't believe you're doing this thing, and you're doing it by yourself because your
right,
husband's deployed and you're at home,
right,
you need this connection. But
right.
he's also, what a testimony of strength. Like you were saying,
Yeah,
that's a completely
yeah.
different testimony. There
Mm-hmm.
is amazing things that God is doing
Mm-hmm.
in you and your family and your children,
Yes.
and then the way that you can share it out to others. So
Yeah.
uh that just that, get connected. I keep telling people, and I think
Yes.
honestly, I think military families probably do it better than others of us because of the way that you guys pop around and you
Yeah.
have the groups and stuff, on the base or whatever, just
Yeah.
because you need that because of the
Right.
constant change.
Yeah, I agree.
So
I
it's a good
agree. I think
lesson.
so. I think we do. I think we do.
Yeah.
A lot of change. And so families really seek connection.
Yeah.
I started a nonprofit, Military Homeschoolers Association,
Hmm.
because I really felt the need to partner with a lot of nonprofits that exist in the DoD space. They have programs and resources that are for families and for kids and for educational purposes, but it's really hard for these nonprofits to reach the homeschooling community. Even though
Yeah.
it's a nonprofit in the DoD space, they still can't really reach us. We're busy
Mhm.
living our lives, homeschooling our kids. We're busy being on field trips and doing all the things, and so they really can't find us. And I saw that there was this disconnect, and so I started the nonprofit to say, let's partner with these organizations, and let's bring certain resources together for these. And we started a podcast called Base, and the number two, Base Military Homeschooling. And so and we have a board, and all of our board is military connected homeschooling. We have one dad who's serving. He's serving as our webmaster, and then the rest of the our ladies, and they all either have finished homeschooling in the military, seasoned ones, and or they're still in the midst of it with babies and kids, but they're like, I see your vision, Natalie, and I want to support it. So we have about 13 people on the board now. and doing great things. I always want to shout them out. I'm so thankful for God for how He just brought people along. And, it complements what I do with HSLDA because over on that side, I'm focusing on the legal. And so I still encourage people that I come in contact with over on the nonprofit side, you need to get connected to HSLDA because of the legal resources there, and other resources that we've created over on that side. And so it really dovetails really nicely. And so I'm really excited to see how God is just really like doing things. And I'm like, okay, God, what's next? So what's next?
Yeah, right. I
So,
love your story with your like tapping. I kept running into homeschooling people. Like it can,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
love that stuff. And when you keep hearing the same message again and again, like
Hmm.
that's happened to me in Bible study too. I keep coming across this particular message. I guess
Yeah.
I need to pay attention, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. God will cause you to pay attention at some point,
Yeah, right.
definitely.
Hello.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hello. He will get your attention. It just gets louder and louder and louder. And so, yeah, so here we are, like
Yeah,
how many
right.
years later, right? Just
So
loving it.
funny.
And so it's been a blessing because now, I get to travel and speak under both auspices. For HSLDA, which I've loved doing as a high school educational specialist. It's another one of my hats. I wear two hats at HSLDA. The one that I spend the most time with, I think, is the military outreach, but I do travel to conferences and support and share, helping families learn how to homeschool and homeschool well in the high school to college piece or post-secondary, wherever you're going, could be enlistment. It could be a trade. We know there's lots of other options in addition to college. And then on the MHA side, I do travel and speak over there, just kind of pouring into the families as well. And so it's been really nice to see the growth in military homeschooling. I'll give you some stats. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
Post-COVID, well, I shouldn't say post, let me back up. During COVID, the US Census created a survey that's called the Household Pulse, PULSE survey. It's no longer they don't send it out anymore, but it stopped, I think, in September of last year, 2024 was the last. But the survey, I guess, was just kind of like tracking education and how people were doing in that whole space, right? That everyone moved into doing school at home, we know, not homeschooling,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
school at
yeah.
home, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, right, right. And so people be like, no, this isn't working. Well, it's not homeschooling. That's right. You need support, right?
Yeah,
Anyway, but we understand that, but it was hard to express that to others who were really kind of put in a situation where they were forced to make that choice. And we know that's really hard for families that don't really passionately feel called. But
Mm-hmm.
having said that, so the Household Pulse survey tracked, military members as well. And it asked questions about their children and education. And so HSLDA was able to extract data from that to show really how many people potentially are homeschooling that are military connected, right? Because we know I don't think everyone had to take the survey. I don't remember that piece, but significant amount of people did. And so we in the military community are homeschooling at double the national average. Go figure. Like really, really, really. So about 8%, I think there's like 32 million families with school age children. They have at least one, and about 8% nationally homeschool, and we're at about 16 plus percent in the military active duty side. Crazy. And then in the National Guard, it's 12.5%.
Wow.
Yeah. So the
Wow.
National Guard families are
Wow.
living in the civilian communities. They don't live on
Yeah.
an installation because they're connected to the state. So they only move if they get activated, right? Or they get sent on a deployment. But they do most of all of their training and everything in the state. So they stay home in civilian communities, but they're homeschooling at 12.5%.
Mhm.
And so one of the things that MHA has done is to reach out to say, hey, to these National Guard families that we really see you and you're part of us. You're all part of us, right? That's why I use the term military connected because you may active duty, you could be retired, you could be a
Mhm.
veteran. You didn't retire, but you served, right? And you were discharged honorably, or it could be National Guard. And so, there's all the options there.
Mhm. Mhm. That is wonderful that you're, connecting all those people, but that the rates there is incredible. So
and they're amazing.
obviously,
Yeah.
homeschooling is an amazing fit
Yes.
for
Yes.
military families.
Yes.
So, what would you say? So, like for a state organization or like the
Yeah.
co-ops out there that I was saying that, make yourself known to military families, but what
Mhm.
what type of support do military families need the most? Like, and it could be something that we've talked
Right.
about already, but what are the things that they really need to, encourage them on, and what are their like biggest challenges or
Yeah, so gosh, the difficulty would be is that you'd have to be able to get on the installation. So serving them outside in your co-ops, I would just say, just make them feel welcome. Just reach
Mhm,
out and say, hey, we see you and ask, what can we do? Is there anything we can do? It will be unique to that family what they need. I will be honest, some of the most simple, basic needs are the ones that just help a family thrive. Like, it's not anything spectacular. It could be that, hey, they even may not even live on the installation because we know there's not enough housing for everybody connected to
mhm,
that base to live on the installation. So say maybe they have a husband that's deployed and they need someone to cut the grass, right? Or they're having another baby or something and they just need someone to know, see, care, and maybe create a meal, a train or something to,
mhm,
it varies. It varies. I think the biggest thing is just to say, hey, we see you, we thank you, and we want to be able to support you. What do you need? How can we do this? Zan Tyler, yes.
yes,
She had
yes.
me, we did a podcast on her podcast, the Zan Tyler podcast, and then we did a BJU sponsored a military family summit this past November where they invited 21 leaders and I gathered these 21 leaders and we came to Greenville and they covered the whole thing for 3 days. It was phenomenal, just loving on these leaders, pouring into them. I spoke, Zan spoke, but we then did a podcast later. And the reason she wanted to do the podcast is similar to what you just asked us. How can we support? Because she was saying this is Christmas time and what can we do to support these families? And we just kind of talked through some of these programs that exist that would be easy for you as a civilian to tap into. And they're programs that directly touch military families. And so,
Mhm,
yeah, because I know there's plenty of people have a heart to help and serve and support us.
mhm.
And like, how can you, right? So,
Yeah, and sometimes, yeah, it is hard to know what is needed. Like
yeah,
what is the thing that is needed? And I think earlier what we talked about with the flexibility, welcoming people into your groups and just being willing to work with the uh-oh,
yeah,
they're moving. Okay, well,
right.
we'll figure it out for the rest of the year. Life
Yeah,
happens. I always call
right.
it life happens, right?
Life
Life
happens.
happens. You never
That's
know.
true.
And
Right.
it
You don't
happens to
know.
all of us,
Right.
so
You're
um
right.
yeah, but it doesn't mean that you don't engage, right? Just because
Right.
life happens doesn't mean you don't engage people. So
Exactly. Exactly.
um
Because, military, that the word gets out sometime that, we weren't really welcome there because we're a military family and people, and so it's really hard. So you want to share and show the love of Christ, really. And
mhm,
that's just the bottom line, which is what I
mhm,
think we're all called to
absolutely.
do, period. Right.
Mhm.
And so just be a little bit more intentional with that military family and
Yeah.
the other thing is I wanted to share with you too that may be interesting to your listeners is we talked about military families choosing a homeschool because of that stability, right? And that's been like a traditional main reason. But we are seeing, and we did a survey under the MHA side. We did the first ever military homeschool survey. We had 861 families responded to the 68 question survey. We
Mhm.
got 763 actual usable like responses, like people completed the whole 68. And from that, we saw the traditional reason, right? We're going to move, we need continuity. But now what we're seeing is families are concerned about the bullying crises that's happening in the schools. They Most of them had not had an experience. They were just being preventive and concerned that the rise, they were watching the rates and see what we do. We get orders and families, military families get orders to a new place and they check the schools in the area. They check the school district. They check what the local schools are like, and they look for these kind of stats. And so you'll find military families who will homeschool at one duty station, and then they will go back into a public school at another. And then you do have some who are just traditional. We're in it for the long haul. So you got this mixed community, homeschooling for different reasons, and which is in a civilian, right? But because we move, it happens so much more frequently. And then the other reason, in addition to the traditional and the bullying concern, is the special needs families. Those that have neurodivergent children, they aren't feeling like they're getting the services. And aren't we seeing that across the board? And
Yeah.
yeah, national,
Yeah.
I know you've
Yeah.
seen it in Pennsylvania, right? It's
Yeah.
like these families, it's growing. And
Hmm.
they're families that, they're like, what do? We don't feel like our child or children are getting what they need, so they pull out to
Hmm.
homeschool. And so, how do you support these families? And and I know some professionals have said, well, they should just go back into the school. And I'm like, no, that's the wrong answer from my perspective,
Hmm.
because I'm
Hmm.
going to help you homeschool well. I'm going to come alongside. You say you want to homeschool, we're going to get it done. Let's figure it out. So
Yeah.
the answer isn't that you made the wrong choice. The answer is, how do we provide the support these families need so they can be successful in their homeschooling journey? And so it's been interesting looking at these growing numbers, and the survey that we did confirmed literally what we see. So
Yeah.
it's a new age. It's really interesting right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it is changing. It's
Mhm.
definitely the homeschooling community is definitely changing. We've been seeing that for a
Mhm.
number of years. I guess COVID just did the whole
Yeah, yeah,
thing that it did.
right. Yes, yes, yes.
But what I do really, I mean, the silver lining in all of that is that people saw what was going on and were like,
Right.
wait a second, I don't
Yeah,
want that for my children.
right,
We're gonna keep them home and we're
right.
taking charge and all
Yes,
that
we're
stuff.
taking
But
charge of the education, right? Yep.
yeah, and I also think it's so valuable to help people realize that there is support out there and that
Hmm.
there's so many stories of people talking
Hmm.
about going to the school and advocating for my kid. I'm advocating for my kid. I'm advocating for my kid. But it's like bring them home
Yeah.
and
Right.
we'll get you the tools that you need
Right.
to work there. And especially like with military families and the changing all the time that just compounds, oh my goodness, just all the layers. Just,
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. There's lots of multi layers, right? There's lots
yeah,
of layers.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So we're just working hard, to get the resources and support them and do
Mhm,
the things they need, and get
mhm,
them in a good space, and just recognize, like it is what it is, and how do we ensure that you are successful and you feel good about it, and that you feel like you're in community with whatever level of community. We know
mhm,
some people don't want or need a lot of community,
mhm,
right? But
mhm,
if you need it, we want to be
mhm.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. That's really important to be at least aware. You don't have to
exactly.
use all the resources,
Yes,
but
right.
it's really sad when someone's out there like, and they just don't know and you can't reach
Yeah,
them.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Okay, this has been amazing. So before we wrap up,
yeah.
is there anything, I'll give you like a two-sided thing here. Is there anything you want military homeschool families to be aware of? And is there
Yeah.
anything you would like those of us who are not but are in the homeschooling community to be aware of as we connect with or relate to military families?
Yes. Well, for military families, I just want you to be aware of the support. We've talked about a lot of it here, on the HSLDA side, worked really hard to create all kinds of resources there, including a podcast, like a playlist on YouTube. I did about over 30 Facebook Lives, and we are amassing a lot of resources on the website. And you have the attorneys that are there. And so make sure you plug in, and there's a discount for membership. So I always like to definitely, I always will plug in HSLDA, it particularly, well, even prior to the recent challenges that we are having, it's still the organization that does what it does for families that who choose to homeschool, and they're advocates for homeschooling. So, and then plug into the state orgs. I always again bring that back up, is I think that's super duper important. You may not know what you're missing, but believe me, there's a reason that you should get connected to your state org. And so that's the messages I tell, the military community. We have MHA that has a podcast and support on that side, and we're creating a lot of special needs resources specifically for the military community. HSLDA has a lot of special needs, so the support's out there. CHAP, I know
Yeah.
your website has plenty of support. You got your conference coming up. This is the season to get plugged in. I really don't want anyone out there saying, "Oh, I need help and I don't know where to get it from." Like, it's out there, and we want to be available to the families. And then those who are not military but want to support, again, I just say, just love on us, just be available, be intentional about realizing, because we don't walk into stores or places and say, "We're military." Typically you may not know. You may be able to tell if the dad's and he's like shaven and haircut real low or something like that. But you know what I'm saying. But or of course in uniform, and that's a number one giveaway. But in general, we may not say that. So just kind of, when you find out, just love on us and just say, "Hey, how can I support? What do you need?" And that's a way when people say thank you for your service, but if they put action to it, like really like say, "Is there anything I can do to help your family?" That would be so amazing.
Yeah, that's really sweet. That's really sweet. It made me think of like not just asking how are you and not really meaning it, but really meaning it.
Yeah, really
Right.
meaning it. Exactly.
Yeah, taking the time to listen. What is the website for it's MHA, right? Is that
Yes,
your
yes,
what's
Military
the website for
Homeschoolers Association. So that is Military Homeschoolers, that's
that?
ERS.org. That's our website.
Okay.
We are Military Homeschoolers Association on Facebook, on Instagram. We will be up on LinkedIn soon. Our podcast is BASE, and then the number two, BASE, Military Homeschooling. It's on our YouTube channel, so you can find the playlist there. We're growing it. We have a long list of people who have said, "I want to be a guest," from Hickam Air Base in Hawaii to Guam to Okinawa. We got all these amazing military homeschool moms who are going to be the guests, and they're going to talk about what life is like on their installation. Like, what is life like homeschooling in Okinawa? What exists there? What co-ops exist? There's a classical conversations there. Like, yeah. So just, for information, so families know, right, where they're going, what exists. And then over on the HSLDA side is hslda.org. Everybody,
Mhm.
most people know that. If you
Yep.
go to their website or our website and you click on the tab that has the word explore, you will have a drop down that has resources for military families. That's our landing page, and there's an abundance of content there as well.
That is so wonderful to know.
Yeah.
My oldest has a buddy who's in the Marines,
Okay.
and they just went out to dinner. I think it was last Saturday because he was sent to Hawaii.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
he's being
He
moved.
got orders to Hawaii. Yep.
Yes, he did. He's been in Carolina, North Carolina, I guess, for a number
Okay.
of years.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And yeah, was just sent to Hawaii. So
Yeah. And the Marines don't have, there's not a lot of Marine Corps duty stations. So sometimes, depending upon their MOS, which was like basically their job, um, they will be sent to a Navy installation. And so, but in general, they kind of move around some, like Quantico, Camp Lejeune, New River, North Carolina, Camp Pendleton, overseas to
mhm.
Okinawa and back. So it's just like circle. And so really interesting. Anyway, there's a whole life out there in the
Yeah, it's a
military
whole, it
community.
is. Yeah, I
I
was
would say a
in
whole
one of
new world.
Yeah, how about it? I was in one of my previous podcasts. Sarah and I were invited to go to the Nimitz. So we were at the US
Oh,
on the USS Nimitz.
did you? With Dennis
We
got you out there.
did, yes, it was wonderful. It was so good. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was really good. And it was on whole, so many different levels. We learned so
Hmm.
much and, the opportunities for kids
Right.
who join or,
Yes.
just in the lifestyle. And we talked about people about it. We had people with us who were teachers, not
Yes.
homeschoolers, but teachers, but
Right.
were former military. So they were asking us all about homeschooling and how does
Yeah.
that work? And and all that. So it was really good, and it was a great experience. I really
That
enjoyed
is
being out there.
awesome.
So
That is so
yeah, it was very fun.
awesome. Dennis had sent me the invite, and I think to Will Estrada as well. But
Yes,
both
he was
of us,
supposed to be with us, and he
yeah,
couldn't.
yeah. But
Yeah.
he was busy, and then I had to
Yeah.
speak in Atlanta for the Flourish conference. But one of the things I've been doing is helping families learn about these military service tracks, and that's one of the couple of times I'm going to speak like at Rocky Mountain, and I think I'm speaking in Arizona on that topic as well. Military service tracks, helping them understand if you want to enlist, this is what it looks
Mhm.
like, and this is
Yeah.
what you need. If you want to
Yeah.
go to a military service academy, this is what you need. And
Mhm.
so just laying out the different options. If you want ROTC, this is what that provides, and this is
Mhm.
the path to be successful to get there. And so meeting up with them and just being able to share that information with families has been really really eye-opening because enlistment's one track and it's not the only way.
Mhm.
Some people want to go in and
Mhm.
be an officer or they want to serve
Yeah.
National Guard. So,
Yeah.
but that was a great opportunity to go out and enlist.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I heard everyone that I know went. I didn't realize you were part of the group, but
yeah,
they
yeah,
just
it
were
was
like
great.
raving about it. Like Sherry
Yeah.
McMahon with
Yeah.
Rocky Mountain was like, "Oh, this was great."
It was great. It was a really, really amazing opportunity. And then the Nimitz was just deployed on her very last
Mm,
deployment and is going to be
yes,
retired. So,
yes, yes. I heard.
yeah,
I heard.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So there we go. Well, we might have to get back together another time and talk about those opportunities you were just mentioning for
Yeah, about
homeschool
the military
students.
service track. Yeah,
Yeah,
helping
we
students.
might have to
We
do
have
that.
I've hosted an ASVAB twice here for homeschoolers. So I partnered with Baltimore Maps to bring the
Yes.
ASVAB Career Exploration Program to homeschoolers here. And the
Yeah.
homeschoolers were like, wow, I didn't know I was good with that. I didn't know I had that skill. And it was an amazing free career assessment opportunity. And there's no commitment to serve. The military does
Yeah.
not get your scores. And it's a different experience than someone who says they want to enlist and they go to a recruiter. Then a recruiter gets them to maps and they take the ASVAB. But when we host it, or when I host it, it's actually the career exploration part, and
Mhm.
it gives homeschoolers like more information about what they're really skilled in, and they help you correlate it to particular careers, not just in the military, but
Yeah.
civilian, and so it's
Yeah.
phenomenal
Yeah.
opportunity. Yeah.
We'll have to get together and chat about
Yeah.
that again some other
Okay.
time.
Okay. We
That
got more
sounds
to
like
talk about.
that's another really good episode to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I think this was
Oh,
really great conversation. I'm glad
thank
to make
you.
families aware how they can support military families and
Thank you.
military families aware of what's out there as support, to connect you and all that stuff. So thank you, Natalie, for coming on the show. I really
Thank
appreciate it.
you. Thank you so much, Ginger. This has been such a delight. I really appreciate it.
Great. So, okay, everybody, have a great week. And remember, enjoy the summertime. We're into summertime here. Enjoy that time. You're continuing to follow Christ in all of life and teaching your children to do the same and
Amen.
enjoying the journey wherever God leads you. We'll see
Amen.
you next time. Bye now.
Bye.